be violated. We're going to take you through all the current happenings there on war. And finally, in our deep dive, we will take you through a quick look across the Middle Eastern region on the number of flights that have been cancelled, on the tensions that prevail and how many country leaders within the Middle East coming together in a huddle on how to respond to Iran after their strikes on US military bases. And in our day to night segment, a quick look at the BJP targeting Dravidian leaders in Tamil Nadu ahead of elections through their religious Murugan conference that was held in Tamil Nadu. And of course, Diljit Dosage, whose film is all set to release, Sardar 3, he's now receiving a lot of backlash for casting Pakistani actor Hanya Amir. Boycott calls in India for it. All that and more, as always, the headlines. Donald Trump blasts Israel and Iran over ceasefire breach. US President uses expletives quite literally, accusing both nations of violating truce after Israel hits Iranian radar installations and explosions rock Tehran. Iran, of course, denying the missile fire but says will react to Israel's aggression. US Supreme Court allows Trump-era deportation rules. Migrants can now be sent to third countries without guaranteed chance to explain torture or death risk. DGCA flags major safety lapses at top airports. Delhi, Mumbai among hubs given 7 days to fix violations post Ahmedabad crash. Audit finds poor monitoring, faulty rectifications. Eleven aboard Air India London Mumbai flight fall ill. Appears to be food poisoning. Passengers along with crew members reported dizziness and nausea mid-air. Airline confirms the Boeing 777 landed safely. Medics were kept on standby. Some of them were hospitalized but now discharged. Investigation into food poisoning being probed. 292 Indians have been airlifted from Iran under Operation Sindhu. Special flight lands in Delhi. NEA says 3,100 evacuated from Iran and Israel amid ongoing tensions. Probe ordered by Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah into cardiac deaths among young people. Rules out vaccine-related deaths, but still concerns being raised by the Karnataka Chief Minister as to why many number of young people are dying of cardiac arrest. In fact, a preliminary report blames smoking, gutka, alcohol, not COVID-19 vaccine. A 3-month expert study suggests. Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah has met Amir Khan at Rashtrapati Bhavan in Delhi during his visit to meet President Draupadi Murmu. EC writes to Rahul Gandhi over poll allegations, invites him to discuss concerns on 2024 Maharashtra polls after his op-ed where he questioned the electoral process, raising questions of a maligned electoral turnout. India's Subhanshu Shukla set for space. In fact, the Axiom 4 mission finally to take off likely on June 25th. After multiple delays. Shukla to become the second Indian in orbit, first to visit the ISS. All right, here you have Donald Trump, who tried to broker peace between Israel and Iran, now frustrated and hopping mad. US President Donald Trump is right now angry. Donald Trump is angered by both Israel and Iran violating ceasefire. Hours after declaring a US-Qatar brokered ceasefire between the two arch enemies, Donald Trump has now lashed out, literally using expletives, warning Israel against launching fresh attacks on Iran. The ceasefire barely held on. In fact, Israel accused Iran of violating the ceasefire, claiming to have intercepted a missile fired from Iranian territory and threatened to respond in full force, while Iran has flatly denied, saying that they have not fired those missiles. Strange. Despite the denials, shelling we saw unfolded in Ahvaz, Iran, There was, including cities like Beersheba in Israel. Both sides faced renewed strikes and attacks. Trump, visibly furious, spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in what White House sources describes as exceptionally firm and direct terms. That's what the conversation was. In fact, he did not mince words. While speaking to the media as well, Donald Trump there almost abusive, claiming that he tried, but clearly both nations do not want to adhere to the deal.
There's the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what they're doing. Do you understand that?
Now the anger comes literally a day after Washington itself escalated the conflict. In fact, a few days ago, we saw how United States decided to strike 3 of Iranian's nuclear sites, a major flashpoint that pushed both nations to the brink. Now, the same United States has come around to ask and call for ceasefire, striking a deal using Qatar's help, but seems like both the countries aren't yet in a position to calm nerves. Iran's top security council has now issued its own warning, saying any further escalation from Israel will be met with equal force and retaliation. Foreign Minister Syed Abbas has echoed the same line, saying that there was no ceasefire agreement in the first place. And in fact, if at all there is a ceasefire agreement, then Israel should adhere to it. If Israel violates the ceasefire, then we will also strike back equally. That's what Iran says. India finally has weighed in. India has responded in a first statement. India says we welcome ceasefire between the two countries. India saying that war is not good for the entire region, asking for both sides to posture and to come to a dialogue table. Well, we're looking at the United States, along with Qatar's help, to try and diffuse tensions between the two nations. It seemed to have worked to a large extent, but will this ceasefire really hold? Let me bring in our panelists right here joining us live. We have Eli Perps, Director International Relations, joining us from Israel itself, live from Jerusalem. Thank you, sir. We have Major General retired V.K. Datta, Defense and Geopolitical Expert. We also have Rabindra Sachdeva, Foreign Affairs Expert and President, Image India Institute. Thank you very much, all of you. At my first question to, of course, Eli, who joins us live from Israel. Eli, what happens to the ceasefire? What happened to it? Right this morning, we hear and we saw, we have our reporter very much there in Israel right now, and he did report on the sites that they saw. Some of the missiles coming in the way of Israel that was intercepted, but Iran says it wasn't us.
Yeah, there's no doubt. First of all, thank you for having me on. There's no doubt that all Israelis were woken up. We found out about the alleged ceasefire at the exact same time when Iran was breaking the ceasefire. So, yes, it's fair to ask how secure the ceasefire is. It is understandable that President Trump would feel outraged, would feel upset. And if he's trying to bring Iran to the table, he needs to go ahead and lash out at Israel. Clearly, he sees the conflict through Israel's lens. He sees Iran as a threat, not just to Israel, but also a threat to the United States of America. If he is going to be seen as someone who is trying to bring both sides to the table, trying to put together a ceasefire, everybody knows that he's on Israel's side, and the only way that he can make Iran feel comfortable is by lashing out at Israel. He understands that if he actually is hoping to try to create peace, and that his strike the other night on Iran's nuclear capabilities is designed to create peace, the only way that will happen is if Israel enforces this ceasefire. And there is a model for this. A few months ago, Israel signed this ceasefire agreement with Iran's largest and most dangerous proxy, Hezbollah. And at the time, Hezbollah had been attacking Israel from Lebanon. Israel largely decapitated it, but they were still going back and forth. A ceasefire agreement was signed where Israel has consistently been enforcing it, meaning anytime Hezbollah is making attempts to try to shoot missiles at Israel, transfer weapons, ends up that Israel takes them out, And that hasn't led to more fighting. It's actually led to a much more stable and peaceful Lebanon. The same potentially could be true in Iran, but it will take a real enforcement mechanism, and the only entity that has the willingness and the courage to do so is Israel.
You know, Major General V.K. Datta, if you could give us a sense on this truce or this ceasefire that Donald Trump announced soon after Iran struck at some of the U.S. military bases in the Middle East. In your view, is this diplomatically premature? Nerves haven't even calmed down, and before which you have United States President says, well, all is over now, ceasefire declared, a deal has been struck. But both sides didn't live up to it as expected. In fact, Iran says there was never a deal.
Nabila, it's been a complicated situation. As far as Israel is concerned, for them this war started on 7th of October 2023 when Hamas carried out a massive terrorist attack across the line and killed 1,200 Israeli citizens and took away 250 as hostages. And it was a dastardly action. And therefore, Israel subsequently started the counteroffensive to sort out Hamas in Gaza, and then, of course, joined by Hezbollah, and that was a separate situation for Israel. And then also the situation created by the Houthis from Yemen and some elements from the side of Syria. And at that point in time, all these proxies were being supported by Iran, and therefore Iran was the instigator behind the entire situation faced by Iran. And as it is, we all know that the mindset in Iran has been that they don't want Jewish state to exist at all. They always say death to America, death to Israel. So now, ultimately, Israel had to come and resolve the issues with Iran and make sure that the so-called nuclear threat which they will pose subsequently as a nation having nuclear weapons and carrying out terrorism under the umbrella of a nuclear threat, like we've had a situation with Pakistan, that terrorism being instigated under a nuclear umbrella. So it becomes more complicated. So now, therefore, Israel carried out and started the operation Rising Lion to neutralize the nuclear capability of Iran and maybe try a regime change, but that takes a lot of time, because when countries go at war, the people rally behind the government, whichever it may be, and that is what happened in Pakistan also with Asim Munir. He was being abused every day in Pakistan, but when he started the situation with India, he became, the people rallied behind him. Anyway, so that's a different situation. Now we come on to the element, how far Israel was able to decapacitate the Iranian nuclear capability or the effort to become nuclear power or to develop nuclear weapons. They struck their nuclear establishment. 18, 19 nuclear scientists have been knocked out. The IRG commanders have been knocked out. But, we know in the modern day, technology can be passed on, it can be saved in computers, the younger generation can pick up from there and start on. And now comes the question of what happened to the nuclear fissile material, whether it was in Natanz, Isfahan, or in Fordo, or wherever the other locations. So now the thing is that the Iranians have made a statement that somewhere in March, they moved the entire nuclear fissile material to a safer site. They knew that Israel is going to attack. Now, if we take that as a maybe truth to some extent, that means that Iran has been able to save some of the nuclear fissile material to a safer site. If in Gaza they have hundreds of kilometers of tunnel system, you be rest assured they must be having similar tunnel systems in Iran itself, maybe connecting their sites to one another. So maybe they have moved the material to maybe another safer location within that labyrinth of tunnels underground. So that time will tell. Now, what is the final, what you call the target analysis? How much we were able to achieve? That again, confirmation will come slightly later. But now comes the question
Israel, though, has claimed that they've managed to get all nuclear sites of Iran, and they've set back Iran's plans to build a nuclear weapon by at least the next
Because
couple
Nabila,
of years.
that is what I'm trying to highlight.
Right, sir.
That have we been able to actually cap that entire effort? So I will say yes, maybe no. Time will tell. But what the Americans did to help out Israel was to use their B-2 bombers with GB-257 to knock out Fordo. So when we talk about Fordo, Isfahan and Trans, they had different capabilities and different type of activity going on in three sites. So now, how far we have been able to push back their effort as far as nuclearization is concerned, that again time will tell, and damage assessment when we get.
Right.
But now comes the question of ceasefire. When the Americans struck the three sites, Iranians at that time threatened that we are going to hit back at the Americans. So what best could they do? Hit out any of the locations where the Americans have their deployment in the Middle East, whether it is in Iraq or Qatar or Kuwait or wherever. So they choose to strike Qatar, and maybe some inputs are coming that actually warned maybe that they're going to strike Qatar. But the Americans had already moved their assets out of Qatar. So okay, fine. And the president said, okay, fine. They vented their anger by striking, sending in few missiles, which most of them were shot out, and one of them maybe, which was not in a target area, went away. So now the question was, will the ceasefire hold? We know by experience, and being an army man myself, whenever you have a ceasefire situation coming in, the armies and the opposing forces which are poised to attack each other will let go at the last moment, the last salvo. Whatever has been loaded in the guns or the missiles which are ready, they'll let go. And that will give you a crunch around right at the fag end of a ceasefire. And that is what the Iranians did, and maybe that is what the Israelis also did. And thereafter,
so then in that case, if that was how it should have happened and that was expected, can I safely say then the ceasefire is here to stay? Rabindra Sachdeva, would you look at this as a final deal done, brokered by US and Qatar? Do you believe that Iran and Israel will live up to the deal now? Do you see signs of it?
Yeah, more or less, but I want to do a quick bit of bullet and tangential points. And we are living in the world of two things, a realpolitik and instant gratification. One, keep that aside. Why does, for example, Iran say death to America? Have we ever thought about it? 1953 or 54, whatever, Americans engineered a coup, street rebellion with money, etc., and dislodged a democratically elected leader of Iran. Any doubt on that? Then Shah Reza Pahlavi, oil, etc., going to west. So let's not get wrapped into slogans which have become a narrative. One. Second, keeping that aside, the ceasefire which is there right now, I think would hold, could hold, will hold, because Trump is the one, Trump holds some Trump cards. Israel cannot continue its whatever mission without the support of America. Defense of Israel is guaranteed by America. Any missiles by anyone, forget Iran, are protected by a defense layer of America. Any doubt of that? Israel, its annual defense budget is $24 or $23 billion. Every year, $4 billion, and every 10 years it's renewed, is given as plain simple aid, American taxpayer money to Israel for its defense. So let's not get, my point is that, yeah, sure, many things are happening. Now, coming to the present one, ceasefire, I do think will hold, because Trump was a part of it. And, there's been a discussion going around that Operation Sindoor of India, where Trump claimed credit for bringing a peace around, is a very different game. In India's case, America was not an involved party.
Yeah.
In the case of Israel, America is a party. America is bombing Iran. America is giving money to Israel. So when America says to Israel, stop, Israel will have to stop. Big picture. Though, yes, Netanyahu has been playing, and perception is this whole narrative that, 10 years ago also, Israel was saying that within 2 months, Iran will have a nuclear weapon. 5 years ago, they were saying the same thing. Fair enough. It's heading to a nuclear weapon, which is not a good thing for anyone to have. So Netanyahu, Israel have managed to persuade America, drag them into the war, and fair enough, America has gone along willingly. They think it's in their self-interest also into this, destroying of these nuclear facilities there. Then with Qatar, yes, another question coming often, I'm just looking at, various discussions I've been on panels today, that this ceasefire, Trump woke up in the morning and just tweeted that, oh, stop the war. No. Iran attacked the American base in Qatar. America did not respond. That was all coordinated. So the ceasefire was being planned already in the past 24, 36 hours between the US, Israel, Iran, the Emir of Qatar. By the way, Qatar, a small country, ends up always being very, pivotal in many such world.
Absolutely. But it was Qatar that was also targeted. You had the airbase.
That was
US
drama.
airbase in
That was
Doha.
drama. That was drama from what we know. That was drama from what we know. Why did then America not attack back? Imagine Iran having the audacity to attack an American base in Qatar, and Trump saying, "Oh, fine, we'll let it go." So it has been choreographed.
You're saying it was a fixed match? Are you saying
Yeah,
this
it
was a
was.
fixed match?
Absolutely. To give the Iranians a face saving so that they could claim to their domestic audiences, yeah, we are fighting against the big Satan. For them, America is the big Satan, Israel is the small Satan. So the Iranian regime is cornered. They have been, virtually decapitated like a chicken, the neck gone.
Mr. Rabindra, I'd like you to hold on for the moment. For our viewers, I will take you through what happened in the last 24 hours. Tensions that surged after Iran fired missiles targeting multiple US military bases across the Middle East, escalating the standoff after American airstrikes pounded Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend. That was Iran's response as we saw multiple military bases of the United States in some of the Middle Eastern countries. In fact, threat was that this could escalate to other Middle Eastern countries, but for sure we have confirmation that Iran struck the military base of the United States in Doha, Qatar. Explosions rocked Doha as missiles were seen lighting up the night sky there, visuals on our screens. Several of them were intercepted, but the panic was indeed real. The Al Udeid Air Base, America's biggest military hub in the Middle East, sits just outside Doha, housing close to 10,000 US troops, but none of them had any injury, which is why some could call this a staged attack. But all the US personnel there were evacuated safely even before the attack. Qatar condemned Iran's attack, though, calling it a flagrant violation of its sovereignty. As tempers flared, Gulf Arab nations scrambled. Foreign ministers from 6 Gulf states are now meeting in Doha for an emergency summit. The 49th extraordinary meeting of the GCC Ministerial Council is now underway, aiming at rallying behind Qatar, sending a united message on protecting the region's stability. Now, if I can bring in Mr. Rabindranath on that, sir, while we see that there could be very easily claims that this was a staged attack, at the same time, you have Middle Eastern countries right now seething. UAE, for that matter, also shut its airspace out of panic because they have US military bases located there as well. Of course, Qatar, Bahrain, all of them went on a panic spree. Last night, I was right here reporting right after my show. All this played out while Iran attacked Qatar's military base, US military base in Qatar. So there was a lot of questions on how the Middle Eastern countries, including UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi, would respond to Iran. They're very angry right now, but we haven't heard any formal statement coming in collectively or individually for any one of these countries. But how would you look at it? Now, Iran, well, it could be very well staged between Iran and US, but Qatar on its part is angry. You have UAE that's angry right now, Saudi that's angry. They're all silent for the moment, but they're angry. They're not okay. They're not happy with Iran posing a threat to them.
Madam, I suggest a simple thing. It's out there all in media that Iran had informed Qatar prior to the attack that they're going to do this. Americans knew about it. So it was all staged. Okay. To give Iran a off-ramp, so to say that Iran could claim to its domestic audiences, look here, they bombed us, Americans. And now we are bombing America's largest air command, central command center in Qatar. It was staged. It was informed. It's out there all in the media.
Running out of the mall, we saw people running out in panic. If we have those visuals, we have people running about in panic, helter-skelter. People were really worried. Anything could have happened.
All there in the
you had missiles there firing up in the sky.
We go by what we read. I'm not there on the ground, but if you read all world media today, New York Times, Washington Post,
that is what is speculated, that Qatar was informed prior, but the civilians,
so
I wouldn't be surprised if one of them had a heart attack.
Sure. I mean, okay, that's a collateral. Polite term, collateral, human lives lost, like collateral.
There
like
you have it,
Gaza,
the malls there in Qatar that had people running helter-skelter. It really came as a shock.
That's
and
small
airspace,
collateral.
you had
Human
multiple airlines that were that cancelled, rerouted. Airspace was closed across countries of the Middle East. So, you know, if government to government, even if they've had a deal prior, it's unfortunate, like you call it, collateral damage. It's always the civilians bearing the brunt.
Sure. I mean, I don't want to, take up too much time, but that's it. It's a fact. So the ceasefire, when people are talking that Trump woke up one day and he's trying to tell both of the parties stop the war. What I'm trying to say is that this whole ceasefire thing has been curated between Netanyahu, the Amir of Qatar, US, Iran, Witkoff, Crown Prince, Saudi Arabia. Because you see, the biggest fear of the Saudis and the Emirates and all is that if this conflict spirals, it's going to bring down maybe their governments. These are all monarchies. They're living on the riches, and the people in these countries are sure also getting rich, but there's a pro-Palestinian sentiment in these countries. So there's going to come a time when Jordan and Egypt and maybe Saudi will face a revolution on their streets. They're afraid of that. That's why they again worked with US, whatsoever, to tamp down this fire which was going to rage otherwise in the Middle East. That's my thought.
Sir, I will have you stay with us. If a quick look at the protests, as much as we say that the United States at this point is trying to bring peace across the world by ensuring Iran does not have a nuclear weapon and aiding Israel in this quest, you have civilians across many parts of the world not in agreement with US approach. US President's decision to launch airstrikes against Iran saw widespread demonstrations from Washington, Toronto, London, New York, Athens, Karachi. Protests against the United States were launched in full spate. In fact, the US, we know, struck multiple locations in Iran, particularly the nuclear sites. And here you have people in the United States itself very angry with US going forward with this strike against Iran. And you saw these protests that were held day and night in the last 2 days in New York, Boston, Washington, D.C. In fact, these were what the visuals that were played out across many different parts of the United States condemning the US President Donald Trump of not prioritizing United States, but instead prioritizing Israel. And let me take in our panelists on this. Eli, who's from Israel. All right, we've lost his connection. Well, there you have it. Sir, General Datta, if you could jump in on this. I wanted to ask the Israeli panelists on joining us, but we seem to have lost his connection. We're looking at people protesting against US action, particularly Donald Trump's attacks on Iran. Not very happy. Civilians out there on the streets condemning this, saying US is prioritizing Israel and not America.
Yeah, Nabila, if you go back before the American attack on Iran, 60% Americans in a vote had said America should not join this war with Israel against Iran. 60%. 70% Republicans themselves had voted against America going to war against Iran for Israel. And though many Americans also said that Iran should not be making a nuclear device. Now, with that backdrop, when the public within US and the Republican Party by themselves were against this involvement of US in attacking Iran. So naturally these protests would be seen on the ground, on the streets of US and many other parts of the world. But now the thing is that Donald Trump was under a dual pressure. One was the pressure of the public within the Republicans, and of course the Democrats always trying to pull down Donald Trump. At the other end were the Jewish influencers and the influence of the Jewish community in the US and his own business partners who have a lot of sway on Trump, that you have to do something for Israel. And therefore Trump thought the best way out was to strike those 3 nuclear sites from which he knew, and maybe 2 days earlier, from Fordo itself, a number of trucks had come to take out whatever was left out in Fordo, and therefore I personally feel that Fordo was evacuated by the Iranians before the Americans stuck there. So the Americans, of course, did a aerial strike by B-2 bombers using the GBU-57. Whatever damage they have been able to achieve has yet to be confirmed finally by independent authorities to see whether they were actually able to totally decapacitate these sites or not. So therefore, after the Americans were able to do that, they got their assets back safely back to the US or to their bases. Then the Americans said, okay, fine. In the statement of the president, that of course Iran wanted to vent its anger and they stuck Qatar base of theirs. So they knew that. So he said, okay, you vent your anger on me, makes no difference, we'll shoot down your missiles, it is not going to cause any damage. And so that is it. So the protest which you see today is that backdrop of the people.
The protests that we can have on our screens, please.
Yeah. And now brokering a ceasefire don't happen by a turn on and turn off. That means a lot of homework must have been done. The Iranian foreign minister had met Mr. Putin, he was there in Moscow. I'm very sure that maybe something also went in between Putin and maybe the US president as to how they're going to resolve this particular this thing. So the happiest people in this entire game were the Turkish, who wants to become a Khalifa, maybe the Saudi Arabians, they also want to become a Khalifa of the Muslim world, and Russia, because the entire attention was diverted away from Ukraine towards the Middle East. So now finally, whether the ceasefire holds, I personally wish that it holds, because maybe everybody has achieved its aim of targeting whatever they were getting.
We all wish with all our heart that this holds, because it's not doing any good to West Asia. Oil prices shot up, but thankfully it's now down after calls for ceasefire. We're really hoping on both sides they live up to it. But Ellie, a quick word. United States has been fully supporting Israel on its quest. But we're also looking at civilians turning against the US government. You have large protests that are being carried out across different parts of the United States. Your comment on that?
Well, President Trump is someone who really has a great pulse for the American people, and he understands that he wants to try to create peace. He was successful in his first administration by creating the Abraham Accords, something that most international observers couldn't even imagine. And then not only was he able to create it, but it's sustained itself over the last 5 years, including an unprecedented war between Israel and Hamas and Israel and many Iranian proxies. As we move forward right now, President Trump's goal is obviously once again to create peace. And he understands that the only way that peace is going to flow out of this Iran-Israel war is if the ceasefire is enforced. And I think Israel has the ability to enforce it. As long as the Iranian regime stays in power in Iran, Israel is going to be at risk. The international community is going to be at risk. And as we saw yesterday, most of the neighboring Arab Middle Eastern countries understand they are at risk. The Strait of Hormuz was threatened last night with being closed. That is not beneficial for the world. So we want to create peace. The President Trump wants to create peace. Israel wants to try to create peace. No way that really will happen. Short term, the ceasefire may work. Long term, there will have to be a regime change, but that ultimately is up to the Iranian people, not the Israeli Iranians.
Well, finally, Mr. Rabindra, your take on this ceasefire. I would like to ask you, a lot of questions being raised as to how and why Muslim countries like Saudi, UAE and the rest aren't really explicitly backing Iran at the moment. Why do you think they've all washed their hands off? They've let Iran fight for itself.
Sure, I mean, several layers upon layers on this aspect. One is the idea of the Sunni Shia divide within the Islamic community, right? That's one. Secondly, I think if one really thinks the issue is, to my mind, the interests of the monarchies and the rulers who are ruling their countries. All of these states in this region, Saudis, Qatar, Kuwait, UAE, Egypt, Jordan, are dictators who are not elected, who are gaining the spoils of money, and who want to do good for their countries, and who think that the good of their countries lies in a better relationship with America, in a big picture economic development. But on the other hand, the disconnect is that the issue of Palestine out there. So they are doing a tap dance. When the Crown Prince and all the Arab states, if you see their statements condemning Israel, for example, for the actions in Gaza, they're just paying lip service. They're paying that lip service because they want to themselves be in power and at the same time convey to their domestic audiences, populations that yes, I'm standing up for the cause of Islam. In the process, they're doing a disservice to both the causes.
Correct.
Neither they are standing up for the country, nor for the cause of Islam, nor for the cause of the people. So sometime or the other, this contradiction will blow up. And I think that's one of the reasons also for this ceasefire. Not only Trump waking up in the morning and Qataris, the Amir playing very smart, but Saudis are worried, UAE is worried, Kuwait is worried, Bahrain is worried, Jordan lives on American aid. But the people are not in sync with the King Abdullah, if you use their right?
So
Egypt.
So it's basically
it's a tinderbox. It's a tinderbox.
Correct.
Unless the Palestinian issue is solved, this whole region will continue to go wallow up, wallow down.
And ultimately it comes down to the economics of it. And if you have the region there already burning their pockets because of this war that plays out, then I'm sure the wiser thing for them to do is right now step back and not contribute to this war or aggravate it any further, because it harms and hurts every one of them, including India for that matter. Well, thank you very much. India's statement was clear today that they welcome ceasefire. India has always been on the side of peace, and with the Israel-Iran clash and war that plays out, you have India yet again reinforcing that war is not the solution. Thanks very much, our panelists, for joining us on that. A quick look is Operation Sindhu that still continues. We're looking at evacuation that's still underway from Israel. We saw a whole bunch of Indians who were brought amid the spiraling tensions. They were brought to India. The mission comes in the wake of the US bombings as well on 3 Iranian nuclear sites, and of course Iran bombarding parts of Israel. So on both nations you had Indians that were stranded. They were all safely evacuated, 292 nationals from Iran, 366 from Israel. Flights from Mashhad landed in New Delhi at 3:30 a.m. today. Total number of Indian nationals evacuated from Iran so far has been 2,295. That's a huge number. Indian government has managed to do this seamlessly and brought back everyone safely. Those are visuals that are coming in. Also from Israel, 161 Indians have been flown back on a chartered flight from Amman, which landed at 8:20 a.m. So back-to-back flights that are coming in, evacuation flights that are coming in from Israel and Iran, all landing safely in India. All right, let me slip into a short commercial break. We'll be right back with a lot more on the top stories of the day. Stay with us.
देखना इन आंखों को अभी एक ख्वाब बाकी है, सुननी इस दुनिया को मेरी खामोशी की आवाज बाकी है। समझते थे जिसे वो मुकाम मेरा, होना वहां से मेरा आगाज बाकी है। टाटा मोटर्स प्रस्तुत करता है अब मेरी बारी टीवी 9 नेटवर्क के साथ। कर लीजिए सपनों को साकार करने की तैयारी, कहेंगे आप भी जल्द अब मेरी बारी।
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
A deep dive into what matters to you the most. Angles you won't find anywhere else. News that impacts your life.
All right, taking you through all that's happening in Tamil Nadu. A quick look as election heat there now gaining ground. You're looking at DMK MP in Tamil Nadu, A. Raja, stirring up a fresh political row. This time, a sharp attack that he made and none other than Home Minister Amit Shah. While addressing a press meeting, A. Raja indirectly referred to Amit Shah as a fool, quote unquote. Drawing sharp reactions, of course, on the BJP. Let's hear it what A. Raja really said that's triggered the BJP now.
அமித்ஷா வந்தார் மதுரைக்கு, என்ன சொன்னாரு? டெல்லியை பிடித்து விட்டோம், ஹரியானாவை பிடித்து விட்டோம், மகாராஷ்டிராவை பிடித்து விட்டோம், அடுத்து தமிழ்நாடு தான்ங்கிறார். முட்டாள் முட்டாள். டெல்லியிலே நீ பார்த்த அரவிந்த் கெஜ்ரிவால் தனிப்பட்ட தலைவன், ஒரு அரசியல் கட்சி, அவ்வளவுதான். ஹரியானாவில் நீ தோற்கடித்த ஒரு தனி மனிதனை, மகாராஷ்டிராவில் தோற்கடித்தது தனி மனிதனை. ஆனால் முத்துவேல் கருணாநிதி ஸ்டாலின் தனி மனிதன் அல்ல, அவருக்கு பின்னால் பெரியார், அண்ணா, கலைஞர் என்ற திராவிட தத்துவம் இருக்கிறது. அந்த தத்துவத்தை வீழ்த்துறதுக்காக தான் இப்ப துடிக்கிறீங்க. ஏன்னா மேல இருந்து பிடிச்சு வந்துட்டாங்க, ஒரே மொழி, ஒரே நாடு, ஒரே தேசம், ஒரே மதம். எப்படி எல்லாம் ஒண்ணாகும்?
All right, well, this remark there where A. Raja spoke about Amit Shah calling him a fool in as many words, he basically tried to suggest that BJP is a fool to think that they are going to gain ground in Tamil Nadu. In fact, A. Raja said, and I quote, "Fool, fool. Arvind Kejriwal in Delhi is a lone leader, so is the BJP's face in Haryana and Maharashtra, but MK Stalin is not alone. He stands on the shoulders of Periyar, of Anna, of Karunanidhi and the Dravidian philosophy." This is basically A. Raja saying that BJP can only wish to come in Tamil Nadu, but that will never happen. Those who think it will are basically fools. BJP, of course, very furious, strongly condemning what A. Raja has said. Let's listen in.
I strongly condemn Mr. A. Raja, the Member of Parliament from DMK, for his derogatory remarks against the Home Minister of India, Mr. Amit Shah. It shows the mentality of the ruling DMK, the Dravida model DMK. Of course, it doesn't surprise me. The words from A. Raja, who has been a regular offender, who has been a regular in abusing the Hindu religion and the faith of Hindus. But this shows his frustration for not being in power for the last 11 years at the center, and also the fear that the DMK is going to lose in the coming elections.
All right, and now you have, on the other hand, the Murugan conference, the Muruga conference that was held, Lord Muruga conference that was held, which had a lot of NDA leaders, part of it in Tamil Nadu, now has run into controversy as an audio visual that was played at a religious event, the Muruga Bhaktargal conference that was held in Madurai, basically had a video that played out which portrayed some key Dravidian stalwarts like Periyar, Annadurai and M. Karunanidhi in poor light, despite court's orders banning any political content at this Murugan event, which was said to be a religious event. You still had an AV that played out that showed these Dravidian leaders in poor light. Let's have a look. In fact,
தெய்வீக தமிழகத்தை நாத்திக மேகம் சூழ்ந்த நிலையில் இந்துக்களுக்காக வாதாட போராட பரிந்து பேச வந்த மாமணி இந்து முன்னணி போலி திராவிடத்தை வேட்டையாடிய சிங்கம் நாத்திக நரிகளை நறுக்கி மதமாற்ற கும்பல்களை விரட்டி உணர்வுள்ள இந்து சமுதாயத்தை திரட்டி சரித்திரம் படைத்த இயல்.
சமீபத்தில் திருப்பரங்குன்றம் முருகன் கோவில் மலையை சிக்கந்தர் மலை என்றும், புனிதமான மலை மீது அசைவ உணவை சாப்பிட்டு மற்றும் ஆடு வெட்ட புறப்பட்ட சில இந்து விரோத சக்திகளை எதிர்த்தது இந்து முன்னணி.
all right, there you have it, that video there clearly showing these Dravidian leaders in poor light. In fact, expressing regret, AIADMK senior leader and former minister KT Rajendra Balaji, who attended the conference, publicly said that the video should have been avoided and praised Annadurai for uplifting the downtrodden in a way to basically indirectly apologize for that mistake. According to him, he says it shouldn't have happened. Remember, AIADMK is very much part of the NDA with the BJP. It was them who held that religious conference, the Lord Murugan conference in Tamil Nadu. Despite the court's order saying nothing political should go, that AV did play out. This has brought a lot of rage among the people there and quite naturally within the leadership of the DMK in Tamil Nadu. All of this happens right before the 2026 state assembly elections. All right, a quick look that sent shockwaves across the Telugu and Tamil Nadu film industry. Cocaine worth 4 lakhs was purchased 40 times, and the man at the epicenter is none other than popular Tamil actor Shrikant, who also works in the Telugu film industry. He's been arrested for narcotics. Shrikant, the charming actor of Easter years, has now landed in judicial custody in a sensational drug abuse and trafficking case that's only unraveling by the hour. Shrikant is known very well for his charming roles on screen. He's now in the headlines for consuming drugs and purchasing in bulk multiple times, over and over again, and shockingly, it's the drug peddlers themselves who gave his name away. Sources say that Shrikant was interrogated for hours by the Nangambakkam police, and what's emerged is a blood test that's confirmed drug usage. He allegedly bought cocaine not once, not twice, but a staggering 40 times, and money transactions really indicate and point to that very direction. The narcotics were consumed, we hear, at pubs, at private parties across Chennai. Incriminating WhatsApp chats on his phone was seized. The money trail revealed over 4.72 lakhs was transferred via Google Pay for alleged drug purchase. Well, Shrikant found himself in the middle of this drug scandal thanks to a political leader, we hear. This entire saga erupted after a violent bar brawl that happened in an upscale Nangambakkam area where former AIADMK IT wing executive Prasad was caught in the crosshairs. What followed was deep dive investigation that led to police coming by into an investigation into drug purchase and sale. And what they found was Shrikant linked to much of that purchase. Shrikant has admitted to using narcotics, claiming it was for performance enhancement during the shoot of his film Teen Kirai, that was produced by none other than Prasad himself. But here's the twist. Shrikant maintains that he used it personally and never sold or distributed drugs. Still, the court wasn't convinced. His bail plea was rejected and he was advised to move the NDPS special court. Police suspect this racket may go beyond Tamil Nadu, possibly involving gangs from other states as well. Now, authorities suspect the supply chain possibly involves a Nigerian national operating from Bengaluru. Insiders hint more names from the film industry itself could come up, those who possibly are consuming drugs. Now, the actor will be held in a first-class prison, a rare privilege granted after the Egmore court took into account his celebrity status and his child's medical condition. Well, here you have one of the popular stars of cinema who's now in custody for drug usage. Speaking of popular star, here you have Diljit Dosage, who's currently in the center of a controversy, facing calls for a ban and blacklisting in India. We're looking at Diljit Dosage, who's coming up with a film called Sardarji 3. And in that film, he's cast Pakistani actor Hanya Amir, sparking outrage now from the film industry in India. Of course, after the Pahalgam attacks, we see the Indian filmmakers largely condemning Diljit's decision to cast Hanya Amir, saying that his movie will not be allowed to release in India. In fact, we saw multiple posts on social media platforms condemning Diljit's decision. The FWICE advises a ban on Sardarji film. The Federation of Western India Cine Employees has written to Prime Minister Narendra Modi demanding that Diljit Dosage and the film's producers be blacklisted from the film industry itself, their passports seized and their Indian citizenship cancelled. The film, of course, sees Hanya Amir, very popular Pakistani star who has a huge fan base even in India. That letter there by this body to the CBFC and the IB ministry has basically condemns this decision, calling the idea itself as an anti-national act, defying the industry's ban on Pakistani artists. How can Diljit cast Hanya Amir, who's a Pakistani? This is what questions are being raised.
हमने सुना कि वो फिल्म को कहीं और रिलीज कर रहे हैं इंडिया से बाहर। यदि वो ऐसा करते हैं तो हम उनको और उनके प्रोड्यूसर को हमेशा के लिए बैन करेंगे। व्हाइट हिल जो प्रोडक्शन कंपनी है और खुद दिलजीत दोसांझ को किसी और फिल्म में नहीं काम कर पाएंगे। किसी और प्रोड्यूसर के साथ उनकी आने वाली जो फिल्में हैं मैं सबको लेटर लिखूंगा, क्योंकि नेशन फर्स्ट जो हमारा एक फेडरेशन का सिद्धांत है उससे हम हट नहीं सकते ऐसे।
Now, meanwhile, in a dramatic contrast, Toronto Metropolitan University in Canada has announced a dedicated course on Diljit Dosage. Launching in 2026, this course, which will be part of the university syllabus, will explore his impact on global pop culture, on music and the Punjabi diaspora under the university's Creative School program. Well, we're clearly looking at Diljit Dosage, whose popularity surges across the globe, but clearly at this point in India, it seems like he faces extensive backlash after the Pahalgam attacks that had 3 Pakistanis infiltrate into Indian borders, killing innocent lives. And they're yet at large. Pakistani artists have been fully banned. But here is Diljit Dosage carrying out this film with a Pakistani artist, which hasn't boded well with the Indian film industry. All right, let me take you through a quick look at heavy rains, torrential rains that has gripped Gujarat. Surat city left the entire city in a limbo now. Some visuals there that are really shocking. Surat recording over 8 inches of rainfall, heavy downpour that lashed the city right from the morning. Low-lying areas completely submerged, massive waterlogging, evacuation process that has already begun. Fire department has evacuated nearly 100 people, including children, from flooded areas. Schools have been shut, roads underwater, and educational institutions remain closed, of course. And offices as well has declared holiday. IMD issues an orange alert. Gujarat has seen heavy rains and this could persist until June 24th. So basically next 24 hours is going to be quite hectic in Surat. Monsoon memories of 2024 has now resurfaced. The fresh spell of flooding has revived memories of August 2024 disaster when 49 people died in Gujarat due to lightning, wall collapse, flash floods. And now, yet again, the last 2 days has been quite chaotic for people in Surat. Most of them have been evacuated from low-lying areas, though. And our neighboring country, China's Guizhou province has now faced relentless rains, triggering record floods in Rongjiang County. The Duliu River in China has burst and its banks are now surging 11 meters above normal, swamping homes, streets, even turning shopping malls into raging water channels. Entire underground garages there submerged. That's a shopping mall visual on the right, completely submerged. Cars floating like paper boats, literally. Escalators inside malls there resembling waterfalls. Close to 70,000 people have been evacuated as emergency teams wade through chest-deep waters to pull residents to safety. Landslides have snapped key highways. A major expressway bridge collapsed as well under the sheer weight of water and mud. Miraculously, no deaths have been reported so far, but with rain still pouring, more storms are forecast. The fear is very real. China has now activated its highest emergency response, racing to contain a disaster that experts say is no longer rare. Extreme weather events like these are becoming the new normal as climate change fuels heavier monsoons across Asia. And this begs us to ask the question, how prepared is India for these black swan disasters? Something for us to ponder for sure. On that note, we're wrapping the show right here. Thanks very much for tuning in. Same place, same time tomorrow. Have a great night.
This is the tribe of your dreams. Introducing the all-new Skoda Kailak. Own your dream.
Skoda. पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता उछलता है, दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया.
Who am I?
Nobody can crack that mystery.
There is a certain expectation of me.
That's the only contradiction.
Life itself is stranger than fiction.
I was a perfectly normal person born in an abnormal world.
I really didn't understand why is it different.
Just imagine a child who is bullied every day.
Boys school में कुछ लड़का लोग मेरे साथ sexual abuse किए. मुझे तेरे बारे में सब पता है और मैं तेरा rape कर लूँगा.
You also start to stigmatize.
अरे ये तो time pass है.
Sex doesn't come in the picture. Sex comes very late. Then there are man-made narratives.
Why do you walk like that? Why do you sway so much? So you can understand the trauma of a person who's trapped in a wrong body.
But nothing can bind life.
We have to reclaim the lost position. We fought for more than 10 years. Today I'm the mother of the industry. I'm a first transgender member judge.
You can't walk in everybody's shoes.
This is what I'm comfortable with. They just are what they are.
You become the life yourself.
That is the change that I was looking for.
When I recognize myself is a small story, but it's an interesting one.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
What began as a day of celebration turned into a tragedy. The High Court has stepped in and political blame game has ensued. Why is it so difficult in Indian society to say no, mistake has been made? This timeline is going to make things very clear. This was very much avoidable. Unparalleled scene, unimaginable to watch. America and Europe are reaping what they have sowed. Is this the new frontier of the American politics?